Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You're looking a little bit rugged up,
Yes, this
and
is
I'm
Victoria.
actually almost sweating, perspiring. So I think there's a little bit of a difference in our temperatures.
Absolutely. We don't have a frost, but we have had them down to about -1. Yeah, today there's cloud cover and a bit of rain, so it is actually warmer than it's been. I think we're sitting on about 5.
And I'm enjoying a lovely, warm, sunny morning.
Right.
So I really appreciate you coming on to be interviewed as an author. And I hope the lockdown hasn't been affecting you too much. You're in Victoria.
The lockdown for me is absolutely wonderful. I get to write. I don't have to change out of my jammers. And as only one person can go to the shop, I nominate my wife and I send her out to gather food.
Well, it's good to have a positive news story.
Yeah, no, I love lockdown.
Now, I know that you've actually published a couple of books. Do you want
Yes,
to
I
tell us about them? And you also have a blog.
yes. So the writing that I took up in Sydney when I came here was actually about our business. So I did all of the newsletters and social work, media work on that. But when we were selling the business, I thought it might be a good idea to write a book about those 10 years because it's quite a struggle when you are both an intimate partner in a business relationship. And I just thought that I'd write about what that was like. We were in a new relationship. Neither of us had ever had a business. And we threw ourselves into that for 10 years. So that was my first book. Since coming to Victoria, I've had a couple of writing groups, workshops that I've led. And out of that, I wrote a ebook about how to overcome your fear of writing, because that did seem to come up quite a lot in the writing workshops. And at present, I'm working on a new book. I'm in editing phase, and that's about my 4 weeks in rehab in New Zealand. I'm 20 years sober. So I wanted to document that because I think that it's still a big issue for everybody. I had 2 children, I'd lost contact with them. So I wanted to write about what it was like to be in rehab and then actually re-establish your life. And for me, that meant not just getting sober, but going to find my children and talk with them.
Well, that's you've really got some very involving subject matter there, and I'm sure there must be a great interest in what you're having to say. Hannah, how do you go about publishing your books?
I'm a self-publisher. I've been self-publishing my work since I was 12 years old, when my mother typed up my first story, the classic Eden Blyton, uh, 4 children go for a picnic and take the dog.
The famous 5.
Famous 5, yes. So
I have to admit I was brought up on them too.
absolutely. The comment from my father when he read my first book, I think it probably was 15 pages, was that children seem to do a great deal of eating. And I've never asked for editorial feedback since. I published some work in New Zealand, and I self-published. I have put forward 2 books to publishers, and on both occasions I disagreed with the changes they wanted to make and decided that self-publishing was for me. So I self-published my first 2 books, and I will be self-publishing this one.
So with your self-publishing, how did you actually go about it? Did you publish on Amazon, or did you just get your books printed yourself? And distribute yourselves, or what method did you use?
You've got an Australian subsidiary here where you can upload your books, and you can have them drop post. So I usually get a number of the books printed for myself, and then I turn that over to this company, and they put the books around, and you can buy my books on Amazon.
Oh, right. Great.
Yeah.
And so you've been writing a long time. So what was it that inspired you to write books generally? Well, I know you have gone over this a little bit, but if you can just sort of summarize.
Yeah, that was a childhood thing. It's always been my emotional outlet. It's always been, when I was a child, I was sexually abused. Writing became the way that I was able to hide. If I was making stories up in my head, then I would write them down. And I think that was my way of emotionally working out what was going on for me at a time when I wasn't able to verbalize that to an adult, or to, perhaps mother or school teacher or something like that. So the irony of wanting to be a writer and being passionate about it, and always keeping a journal, is that I'm dyslexic. And so whenever I spoke to my parents, or I spoke to school teachers about my wanting to have a career in writing, they always put me off, because they said, I'm dyslexic. I had a huge problem with my handwriting, with writing, with spelling, grammar. They didn't think that that was a path that I should take. I was put off going into journalism because of that. And so I was left with creative writing. I've got a great imagination. I'm very creative. So it wasn't a hardship. It just meant that I've had to wait until, my mid-60s to be able to really dedicate myself to something that I've been passionate about.
Well, that's really fantastic story, going from, having that issue of just being dyslexic, and then actually becoming a writer. But probably maybe it's really forced you to focus on ways to overcome it.
Oh, absolutely. I love the computer age, because I wrote my first 2 books by hand, because I was living in a place where we didn't have electricity. So I've had lots of time and lots of practice. And because of the dyslexia, I learned to start looking at a dictionary and trying to find the words I want. It's so much easier on Google with spell check. But I've got to say that being forced to write, to try and find the word that you want, and then try to find how to spell that word, has improved my vocabulary. I do write now with a lot more self-confidence than I ever did.
Yeah, yeah. So apart from the books that you've written, I notice you also have a blog.
Oh, look, I love writing. I'll write anything all the time. I also like, I've overcome quite a few things in my life, and I like to write about that, because my ability to do what I do has always been inspired by the books that I've read. May Sarton was one of the women who really influenced my writing, because she wrote about being alone, she wrote about depression, and I just think that I've never been someone who's wanted to write and publish and then pop it under the bed. You know, I always knew that I wanted my writing to go out there. I always wanted to talk to other people. I always wanted to share it. I mean, that's been part of my reason for publishing, is because I do want to share it. I think that the only way that people can learn about the things that have happened to me, which are universal, we're talking about not just my sobriety, not just the dyslexia, but not just the child abuse, but any of those things that have happened to me in my life. I've always wanted to share that, because as a young child, I couldn't talk about it. And I find now that there's still people, still women my age, who can't talk about the things that happened to them. And I think part of what we can do with that is show them that there are other people, other women who have gone through that. I just think it means that it allows somebody else not to feel alone, and maybe
Yes, so you're very much a role model. So
gosh, that sounds big, Marjorie.
eh?
That sounds big.
Well, you are.
I hadn't thought of it like that. I just thought that, you know, I'm a passionate writer and I like to share.
Yeah.
And I do mostly write about, well,
Yes.
exclusively, really, I write about myself and my experience.
And you have an author's website. I've been in there and had a look. You might just tell us how people can buy your books and the link to your website. So this is Hannah Collins, everybody. So,
okay, so I'm in the process of having the website updated to include the new book. It'll go on sale hopefully by the end of August. It'll be available on my website, which is hannahcollinsauthor.com.au. And I'd love everyone to get on there and have a look at it, because not just to fulfill my ambitions to become a writer, but also if they find that the work resonates, or they'd like to share it with someone that they feel might be helped in some way by reading somebody else's story. I'm just checking my website, Marjorie, and I'm going to correct myself because I've changed my website with the update. So it's hannahcollins.com.au.
oh, right. Okay, so just your name, hannahcollins.com.au. I got it right?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
thank you, Hannah. Thank you. This has been a fascinating interview. I really appreciate your giving up your time this morning away from your writing to come here and talk to us. So thank you very much, and see you online.
You will, Marjorie. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Bye.
Bye.